Hello and welcome on board. We have a very special guest today. Rene is joining us from all the way from Australia. He's going to tell us a little bit about his story, why and how he ended up there. But before than that, I really want to give a huge welcome to my friend Rene. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Elise. Thank you so much.
How
And thank
are
you for
you?
having me here. Yeah, good.
Absolutely. Good. Your body language
Yeah, so
looks amazing. This week, whoever I was talking to, they were like, okay, so how am I going to be able to read someone's thoughts? I said, I don't know, but you're going to be looking at them, and Rene is going to give you some secrets, and you will be able to create some imaginations about what they're thinking, right? Rene, before we start, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, how you started, and how your journey ended up, being the master of body language?
it all started as a little kid. I was born at the seaside in Belgium, and I was always watching people, and I wanted to know why they did what they did. Now, as a kid, you don't realize you're curious, right? And in my case, I was pretty curious. Went to high school. From there, I went to the army. And people said to me, the army, that's not for you. You don't have the right attitude. You don't have the right education. You don't have the right thought patterns. You're not going to make it. And I said, you know what? Watch me. I'll show you. And a lot of people experience that in life, that they say they're influenced by others and they say, hey, it's not for you. You're not going to make it. And some of them said, oh, yeah, I'm not going to make it. I better don't do it. However, I was the other way around and said, you know what? Sure, I'll show you. Watch me. And I joined the Navy. It was an amazing experience. And in the Navy, I saw some people with stars and stripes, and I said, wouldn't it be great to become a sergeant and as a first sergeant? And what happened, in fact, that everybody again said, hey, this is not for you. You have to study for that. Do you realize that? And I was like, you know what? Watch me. I'll show you. And sure enough, a while later, I applied and I got in. And a short period later, I was a sergeant, and then went up to first sergeant. Now, I was watching people jumping out of airplanes and pilots and stuff, and I said, hey, wouldn't it be great to jump out of an airplane? And sure enough, a couple of months later, I was jumping out of not an airplane, but a balloon. But same experience. And then I sat on my hind knee in a C-130 Hercules, and I was watching a pilot, and I said, wouldn't it be great to become a pilot? And I went back home and I said, yeah, because I lived in Germany at that time. And hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I said, no, Rene, you got lucky so far. Don't dream too much. And again, a lot of people experience that in life. They say, don't dream. You're a dreamer. You're not going to make it. And I say, you know what? Watch me. I'll show you. And a couple of months later, I sat in Marquette flying with an instructor next to me. I was a student pilot. And I said, hey, if you want something in life, just do it. And my period in the army, I was also teaching in the army. And then I came back to Belgium after 7 years. I said, you know what? Been there, done that. I'm quitting. And I went back to Belgium to become a truck driver, and did that for 4 years. I had to put food on the table and said, hey, why truck driving? You got to put food on the table. I mean, you have to do something. But then after 4 years, I realized, hey, this is not really my thing. I'm not going to do that for the rest of my life, with all my respect for people who are driving trucks, though, because I know what it is. It's a very hard work. And little by little, I started building my company. We're now 25 years later, long story short. And yeah, that's a bit the story. After 25 years, studying seminars. My first seminar with Tony Robbins, for example, many years ago. Today, I do previews for Tony around the globe. I mean, where did I come from? From a very, very basic, simple lifestyle and hungry for more. And today we're traveling the world. I was in Tehran in February, and now in Australia. I was in Brisbane, and not in Brisbane, in Sydney and Melbourne. Yeah.
It is quite a journey for sure. And everything started with you seeing something. So it was not something that you heard, but you saw something and you said, I'm going to do that, right? But people kept on telling
Yeah.
you that you won't be able to do it. So how did you keep your posture? How did you keep your focus? Like, what motivated you to do whatever you're doing right now? Or did you know about all these inner faculties or how to manage your mind? Or later on through your trainings, like did you learn NLP? How did that start?
Yeah, I learned different courses, but the main thing is being hungry for more and never give up. I had times I wanted to give up. I'm not that special, you know. I had times I wanted to give up, and I said, "This is not for me. I better quit." And then I heard something, and I said, "No, you're not quitting. You keep going. You keep going. You keep going. You never give up." And that is something that is very important, that whatever you do in life, it has nothing to do with NLP or body language or whatever you do in life, you have to be persistent and you never give up. You just keep going, you keep going. If you imagine yourself already where you want to be in a certain amount of time, that's actually going to happen. I mean, I'm the most beautiful proof of that. I'm like, I said in 1995, one day I will end up backstage with Tony Robbins, a high five and a big hug, and say, "Hey, thank you for changing my life." And in 1995, they told me, "You're crazy. It's not going to happen." Sorry. Many years later, I was high fiving Tony backstage, big hug, and say, "Hey, Tony, thank you for changing my life." Sorry for that. So things, you have to put it like out there and just say, "Hey, I'm going to make it anyway." It's going to be a very bumpy road, but hey, let's do it. And in my case, it was body language. It was always observing people. I wanted to know what they did, why they did what they did. I was watching I wanted to know what's going on in that brain. Neuroscience. Neuroscience is we don't have time enough to explain this here, but neuroscience and body language is once you start understanding the signals of the body, you do understand what the brain is thinking. And that is so big.
Isn't it? Isn't it? Actually, funny enough, everything for me started with body language as well. I was in high school and I attended a course called body language, and I'm thinking, well, what is this? You know, I'm just a small girl and I want to read books, I want to go out partying, but what's all this thing about body language? And that day changed my life, because there I started to question, like, how can a girl from west side of Turkey, living in a very elevated people, high conscious people, I'm going like this, like crossing my arms, and the same aged girl on the east part of Turkey who has not gone through any education doing the same thing? Or when we're thinking, we're doing the same thing. So there must be some sort of a communication or some vibrations that our neurology knows and does it automatically. So that's how I started. So tell us a little bit about our listeners. So
could you ask a question again, because there was some noise?
Yeah. So when you started at first about body language, what kind of courses did you take? Like, did you go to a specialist for this? Like, how did that start? And then from there, if you can give us some tools that our listeners can use in their business, especially at times like this, you know, like it's very hard to create certainty. We're at times of uncertainty.
Yeah. So for me, it all started with a network marketing company. I'm not going to name any names, but it was a network marketing company. And I was so blown away by the educational system they had. I was like, wow, that is amazing. How does a brain work and why do people do what they do? And they explained it. And I said, this is my thing. And later on, I forgot about the company, but I continued with personal development. Now, what I understood is that, and that will be in my next blog, it's also on the website, is that one thing I mentioned is that success in business, success in life, and what is success? I mean, that's different for everybody, but success in business and life is like a recipe. It's like people say, hey, business, piece of cake. So what I did, I looked up a recipe of cake, and you have ingredients and you have directions. And if you change the ingredients, you change the outcome of your cake. If you change the directions of preparing the cake, you will change the outcome of the cake. So if you change the ingredients or the directions of the recipe of success in business, you will change the outcome. One of the ingredients is NLP. One of the ingredients are certain tools. And one of the ingredients is body language. I understood that if you know body language, if you learn body language, and you don't have to learn it like start today and know it tomorrow. No, it's a journey. I mean, but if you start understanding how the brain works, your outcome, your recipe for success in business or life will be different. That's for sure.
Interesting. So I was reading an article on epigenetics, and there it said, like, if you have a millionaire in your DNA, in your lineage, you're going to be one. But if you don't have any, do you have any tips to our listeners that you could share? Like, what can they change the way that they stand so they can tap into that success, or they can tap into that moment of power?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. The first thing that I learned from millionaires and billionaires and zillionaires is that you have to stop talking. You have to ask questions. That's the first thing. That's the first step. If you ask questions, which questions? Open questions. Why, where, when, who, which, and how. If I ask you, how was your day today? You're going to come up with a story. During the telling of that story, I will read certain body language. And it's that body language that will say so much to me. I mean, I will discover a lie versus the truth in a split second. I might give you some significance because you are doing the talking. You will give me so much information, but I will also see or read the body language. Now, if you want to be successful in business or life, ask questions as much as you can. If you look to me right now, as I speak to you, I have my hands open. That means I'm inviting you, right? I'm honest, as far as I know.
At least now we know you're honest.
I have my hands open. That's honesty. That's inviting. That is, if I would do it like this, listen, I have something to take, and like this, right? You will say, that's arrogant, that's dominant, it's pushing people away from you. And that's not what you want.
Correct.
Right? By asking questions, you might also find out the character of the person. Is it a team player or a solo player? Is it an emotional person or a rational person? And the list goes on and on and on. So when you find out if somebody is, for example, rational and calm and soft, and a solo player, and you are an emotional and a team player, you might step out of your character, get in their character. In other words, speak their language, and the connection will be different. So it's all about connecting. And if your connection is good, if you step out of your character and you step into their world, right, you're going to level. If you level with them, your outcome will be different. There are different techniques for that in body language. For example, one technique, mirroring. Mirroring means like, if you have a certain posture, I will copy your posture. You change your posture, I will copy paste again your posture. If you change, I will again copy paste it. However, very subtle, because if the person finds out, you're done. That's end of the conversation. If you do it very subtle, you do that 4 or 5 times. By the 6th time, you change your posture before they change, and they might copy paste you. And then you got a different connection too. So if you step out of your character in theirs level, you level through mirroring, right? Your outcome of that conversation will be completely different. I'm going to give you one more. We all have a brain. Those who don't have a brain, please leave the conversation. No, I'm kidding. We all have a brain. We have a left brain and a right brain, right? The right brain is the emotional brain. The left brain is the rational brain. Now, the left brain is connected with the right eye. So the right eye is the rational eye, and the left eye is the emotional eye. When I will speak about emotional things towards you, Yellis, I would look with my left eye into your left eye. And why would I do that? Because I want to connect my right brain with your right brain, because we're talking about emotional things.
Mm-hmm.
And the other way around, rational or emotional. Does that make sense, or is that?
For me, absolutely it does. I have to, I have taken NLP classes, 8 different trainers and Richard Bandler including that. So it does, but it's more about our listeners. And I think the way that you put it together, it's so easy to understand. I really like it, because if we would go into even one sentence, it goes for hours and hours. We can talk about it for hours, but I really enjoy the way that you put it in a very nutshell and very to the point.
The basic thing about body language is the neuroscience. Once you start understanding the neuroscience, how the brain works, the body language science will be very logic. Mm-hmm. If I speak like this or I speak like this, right? I will say, hey, because the brain does this and they're thinking that, etc., etc., etc. So it's all about how does the brain work. I mean, I can speak for example, from 9 a.m. till noon about how the brain works, and then through 3 days about all kinds of gestures and postures. But but I know because the brain, So the basis of body language is discovering how does the brain work. And then all the other body language signs that you see are just, how shall I say, is a result of what the brain is doing. Because
correct.
The thing is that your body never lies. You can't hide a lie. The body will never lie. The body signs are honest. And that's why people sometimes hide their body language by using certain words. All right. There are 3 people, though, that's very, I should say, difficult to read their body language. And those 3 people are people who are using drugs, medicines, alcohol, exaggerating in all these things. Their body is changing, so the body language is not correct. The second group of people are professional actors. Very, very difficult to read their body language if they are acting. And the third group of people are pathological liars. They believe their own lies, so the body language is adapting to what they say.
Got you. Very interesting point. Actually, for our lady listeners, give us some tips and secrets. How can they spot if their boyfriend is lying or not?
Oh.
It's a very simple one, but I get that a lot. Like, I'm having this coaching conversation and the lady goes like, well, how am I going to know if he's lying or not? Tell me something.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you an example that I had in London when I was in London during a coaching session. And I asked an emotional question. So I looked with my left eye into the left eye of the lady. And she answered my question looking that way. I mean, for her to the right. Mm-hmm. That means she made a construction instead of a memory. So now you have to understand, if you make a construction where you should have given me a memory, that might be a red flag in the back of my head that says, oh, just a minute here. I will ask her a second question. Again, wrong answer. A third question, wrong answer. By the 5th question, I said, stop. Could you please be honest with me? She said, what do you mean? I said, I will recap. I asked that question, you did this. I asked that question, you did it, etc., etc., etc. And she started crying. I said, why are you crying? Yeah, but I'm ashamed about my history. I'm ashamed about this, ashamed about that. I said, don't. We are here to learn. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to give you keys where you can enhance your life. But if you continue lying to me, we will have to end the coaching session. And you're not going to pay to me. You don't owe me anything. But please be honest. And how can you find out if somebody is lying? You can find that on my website too. Is if people are looking that way, they're making a construction of something. If they look that way, they have a memory about something. This is in general. It's far more in detail. But construction memory. So if you ask somebody, how was your trip to Egypt last year? They should look that way. Oh, wow, just a minute. If they look that way, they make it in construction. Maybe they've been so busy that day, they have to make a construction. That's why you have to ask 5, 6, 7 different questions and then make an analysis. You can't make an analysis on one question, one answer.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And by the way, I see that Gaia is having a question. Gaia, let me unmute her, and we're gonna have a question from Gaia. Gaia Hanım merhabalar. İsterseniz siz unmute edin. Ben yapmaya çalıştım ama belki kapalı olabilir.
Okay.
Süpersiniz.
Yeah, when I did it, it works. Thank you.
Tamam.
Thanks for this session to the speaker, motivational speaker, and also to Yeliz. My name is Gaia, and my question is, what about the people who tend to not to use any mimics or body language? Like, I mean, I don't want to be judgmental, but I think if I consider the majority, I might say maybe Russians, you know. So how should we read them?
You do have to understand that on this planet where we live on, there's 195 countries, recognized countries. There is 6,800 different languages. 6,800. There's 40 to 42,000 different alternative languages or dialects. You do have to know that each country has a culture. The best thing to do is before you travel somewhere or before you start a communication with somebody or conversation with somebody is to go on the internet and look for the cultural things that are normal in that country. Let me give you an example. I said in Iran, I was in February, I was in Tehran, and I said in Tehran, hey, if you go to Bangladesh and you do this, it's very offensive. And there was a lady, she says, can I say something? I say, of course, in Iran too. And I didn't know it because I didn't do enough research. So if you speak to somebody from a different culture, the best thing to do is to do some research on the internet, on Google, on Wikipedia. And even if you have some friends from that country, you can say, hey, are there some do's and don'ts I should think about when I go or speak to somebody from that country? Does that make sense?
I think her question was amazingly to the point. I really, really like it because sometimes we have prejudgments, don't we, Rene? Like we can be in our bad day, or we can make assumptions. And for example, sometimes a person can get cold and they can go like this. This really doesn't mean that they're close to communication. So there are a lot of things that we should be considering in order to come to an assumption. And I really like that. The first thing is like observe, then ask a lot of questions and listen. So that was number 2. You said minimum of 3 questions that they need to ask in order to come to a minimum of 3 questions in order for them to come to a conclusion. And there are like universal things, just like opening your hands. That means that's a show off, like my heart is open, communication is open. So that's a good thing. And since from 60s, NLP and body language became very popular, especially with politicians, right? So many businessmen and also teachers and politicians have been using it in a way to, unfortunately, manipulate. And there have been a lot of law cases when men, they were trying to be with the girl, they used it when they were drinking at a bar. I don't know if you remember those years, especially in the 80s, there were a lot of lawsuits. And for that, and we're coming into an era where a lot of things will be digitalized, and the first thing will be trust, and everything will need to be open, right? So thinking about the future that we're having ahead of time and the way that we will communicate will change. What can you say, like, especially in your trainings, what do you teach your audience? like using their body language and on a digital format maybe?
So if we're going to talk about the online thing, for example, what happens a lot, the micro expressions, because you don't see the whole body. The only thing you see is the head, a bit of the body, and the hands, right? And most of the time, not even the hands. So micro expressions, reading micro expressions is so important. There's a study that says there's more than 264,000 different micro expressions.
Wow.
And the course I teach, there's only the seven major ones. And by reading the micro expressions only, you can find out a lot of things. If, for example, you're selling your apartment and you're walking on the stairs, for example, and the person you sell to looks to the left and they see something weird and the nose goes up like this, right? A micro expression only lasts a split second. I'm exaggerating because you should see it like this when you lift your nose, right? I'm exaggerating here, but a micro expression only lasts a split second. If you, being the seller of the apartment, don't see that micro expression, if you didn't see it, you're missing out. Because in the end, what you're going to do is say, hey, besides this and this and this, is there anything else of signing the document or buying the apartment? And we're like, nah, not really. Then you can say, just a minute, what we had there on the stairs, this will be repaired. We will take care of that. Besides that, is there anything else that holds you back of buying the apartment? And then they go like, how does he know or she? Micro expressions are very important to read. And especially in a digitalized world, an online world, you know, I have my hands, but the face, so important.
Amazing, amazing. So thinking about being honesty, like the values of a human being, right? How can we encourage using the body language, especially in business, not for manipulation, but more of leading a person towards something good for them? I think that has been the most important thing with NLP and body language. And like, what would you recommend? Like, for example, if we would go into a company and we would be doing the numbering their values, right? Trust is the most important thing. So even before we have the matching and mirroring of the body, maybe having as an intention, or like, what would you say? What should be the inner faculties for a human being so they can have a better rapport with their body to the person that they're speaking to?
It all comes down to the same thing: asking questions. Asking questions. We all want to speak. We all want to do the blah, blah, blah. But asking questions is far more important. If you speak to millionaires, you will find out they only ask questions. If you would ask them a question, they will say, hey, that's an amazing question. Such and such and such, this and this and this. Can I ask you a question? And they will ask you a question. Asking questions, I'm hammering on this during all my trainings. Ask questions. If you go to a company and you say, I'm afraid to ask a question, start with an assumption and finalize it with a question.
Interesting one. Start with, can you repeat that again, please?
Like,
start with an assumption and then conclude with a question.
Yeah. This is an amazing building, sir. What do you think? Or, wow, your personnel, amazing person, the receptionist, for example. Oh, wow, I was so well, and when I came in, it was so amazing to come here. How does that work? Or how do you teach your personnel to do this? Or, I mean, I'm just freewheeling here, thinking outside of the box, but I'll make an assumption and finalize it with a question. Which question? Again, an open question.
Open question. And in your trainings, I believe you are teaching the audience what is an open question and how to ask good questions so that they can understand the model of the world of another human being. And so
an open question is very simple. An open question is a question they can't say yes or no. They have to come up with a story.
So from that story, you get to see their strategy, right? So you get to understand what are their motivation towards whatever they want to do.
Whatever. So if you ask an open question and they bring a story, that is so much information you can work with. You can find out their body, you can read the body language at the same time. You give them significance because they do the talking. You can discover a lie versus the truth. You can think about your next question if that's the case, or you can even wrap it up if you need to. If they do the talking, they do the work. Let them do the work. Just ask a question and bounce the ball back. And
Amazing.
They do the talking, and then the conversation stops. Ask them a question, bounce the ball back. You know.
Perfect. By the way, Linda has a question, and I'm gonna unmute her.
Mm-hmm.
Linda, hi. If you can hear me well, please unmute yourself. There you go.
It's okay, I think.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, I was thinking about the beginning of the talk about the left and the right eye. I found out somebody with archery. He said, "What's your dominant eye?" And I found that a strange question. Never heard about it. So we were also talking about photography, which is also a kind of shooting, you know. So he was also talking about that, and I said, "Oh yes, I realize now I'm using my left eye." And he said, "Yeah, when you have to, for the bow, for archery, you have to use the left eye as well." So I am a little bit wondering, is this a creative thing? Is this genetic? I really don't know, but I find it interesting. And also about digital platform, if I send a message to internations that I want to photograph members in black and white all over the world, but I have to type this, how is there any communication? How can I tell them about my passion? How can I show them even there is no attachment in these messages, what the pictures are about? How do you communicate with such a distant platform?
Yeah.
Amazing question. I like it. Thank you, Linda.
What you said about the dominant eye is a fact. We all have a dominant eye, and everybody has a dominant eye. That is, how shall I say? How can you find out what your dominant eye is? Your dominant eye can be your left or your right. Now, if you stretch your arms like this and you put them together, right, and you make sure there's a little hole in the middle, right, then you stretch your arms like straight, right, and then you look with both eyes through the hole, and you close one. If you still see the point you're focusing on, so you have to go like this, you look with your both eyes open through the hole and you focus on one spot, right? If you close one eye and you can still see the spot through that hole, that's your dominant eye. Why is that so important? Does that make sense? Do you understand what I mean? Linda?
I think she's on mute right now.
Yeah, I didn't unmute myself. I remember doing something like that with the art.
Yeah. It's to find out what your dominant eye is. There are different systems. That's one system I use, works all the time. Now, if you have your dominant eye and you know it's your left or your right, let's say your left eye is your dominant eye, as you mentioned, right? Your left eye, right, is your emotional eye. So it could be that you're an emotional person as well.
Yeah, because I think it's fascinating for shooting, but all kinds of shooting, archery, but also photography. I use this left eye. And what you are talking about, huh?
Because it's your dominant eye.
Yeah, but you say it's emotional. So I'm wondering.
Now, it is very important to know that if you go to a business meeting and you know that your emotional eye is your left eye, so you're an emotional person, right? And you're in an emotional state. Before going into that business meeting, you might retrain your brain for that hour of business meeting. Because in business, you can have emotions, but at certain moments you can't have any emotions. And if you know up front you're an emotional person, you might have to retrain your brain a little bit for that amount of time you're doing that business. For example, if I am in a very emotional state and I went to a funeral of a friend and I'm like very emotional, and in the afternoon I have to sign a deal for $3 million, for example, $3 million, right? I might have to put myself in my car in a different location. Okay, hey man, come on, business, retrain your brain, retrain your brain, retrain your brain. What happens is that all of a sudden I make a shift into a rational state and I'm going into that meeting. But if you know you're an emotional person, which is based on the fact that your left eye is your dominant eye, and if you do a lot of tests, for example, the DISC, the DISC method, you can find out if you're an emotional or a rational person. We're not gonna go into any details here, we're limited in time, but you'll find out that in certain moments during the day, during the week, you have to be in a certain state. And if you know you're an emotional person or a rational person, you might have to train your brain for a couple of hours and then say, hey, and then you can go back to your state where you were in, right?
Amazing. Yeah, this is amazing, Rene. Also, they can use like music. Some music help us to tap into our right hemisphere of the brain. And then whenever we want to be creative, if you're going to create, let's say, if you're in business and we're going to create a marketing campaign and we want to be creative about it. And then we can use breathing techniques and music to tap into in between the left and right. So there are many methods. Do you teach these at your trainings?
Yes. What happens, for example, if you're in a sad moment, what you can do is put the tip of your thumb against the palate. What happens, you create a smile, and all of a sudden, after 10-15 seconds, you will release endorphins, which are the happy hormones. If you put your fists together like this, and you push them as hard as you can, as hard as you can, as hard as you can, like for 10, 12, 15 seconds, and then you release them along your body while shaking your hands, you will release endorphins. These are techniques.
Perfect. So do you have like half-day trainings? Do you have one day? Like how does your one-day training look like? If any of our listeners would like to sign up, or what they will gain out of this training?
So what happens is, all depends on what is your outcome. What do you want? All right. My first question is, what do you want? Especially on a one-on-one, what's your outcome? Maybe you're talking to the wrong person, right? So what's your outcome? And then we have a one-day session, starts in the morning, ends in the evening, and the outcome is the most important. What do you want? Then we have a 2-day session, right? I have one on the 19th and 20th of September in London, a live session. However, it's limited. I allow 20 people because we have to have that. We have to have social distancing and all that stuff, right?
Correct. Yeah.
We can allow only 20 people. That's a 2-day training where you get certified. Now, certification is not just a paper. You're going to get through some tests. You're going to do all kinds of things to really own the certification to become a trainer. With that certification, you'll be able to show people body language in your company or your personnel or whatever, right? So this is a 2-day. Then we have a 3-day master trainer. That's where you start understanding how to train trainers, right? This is available. I also have a free call. It's on the website, on the heading on the website. If you want to book a call, you can do that. It's a 15-minute call. And then you can also log in for a one-on-one, either online or in live. But I'm still in Australia, so if you want to come here, I'm okay with that.
Well, nowadays, most of our clients, including the corporate world, they're totally okay to do everything online, which is a great thing, you know. Like I've been traveling just like you for many, many years, and I was kind of like, because being in the Mediterranean countries, you know, they love to see, they have to, they want to be in the same presence with you in the room. But this COVID thing, in a way, it taught everyone, all humanity, that many things can be done through internet. And that's why, like, you being here today is very much valuable for all the listeners, because digitally the hardest thing has been so far the way how we convey our feelings, you know, because we're not in the same room, so not much of would be able to read from the body or the language patterns. But now we're in this digital world. But again, just like you said, micro, tell us again, what is it? Micro?
Expressions.
Exactly. Exactly. Like even like our eyes going like this a little bit, or these are all called micro expressions. And also in our daily lives, you have given us very good tools that we can use when we want to feel good, maybe. You haven't tapped there yet, but I'm going to ask that as well. But I see that we have new comers on board. So Rene told us a little bit about how we can spot if people are lying or not. And he also talked about right hemisphere and left hemisphere of the brain, and using the eye patterns and all these things that you will be able to find in his trainings. He has a one-day training, and I guess the certification is for 2 days, and then you have the trainer, and that's gonna take like 3 days, and you have one coming up in UK.
Well, in September.
Yes. So last but not the least, and then I'm gonna have Mary, and then we're gonna conclude this. In the early like Turkish movies or Indian movies, whenever women have their makeup on and whenever they don't want to cry, they always have their eyes going up like this. They go like this so they don't cry. Is there a reason why they do that? Like if people are feeling down, especially at times of, you know, Corona and many things happen, so much uncertainty. I see a lot of people, you know, walking like this, looking down. So why people would look up if they don't want to cry? Tell us a little bit, if you would.
I guess if it's a woman, it's because she's afraid her mascara starts running, right?
Exactly. But somehow it works, right? What happens in the brain, like chemically and neurologically, that it works. And there are many other techniques like this, right?
Yeah. It is a fact that when people look away or look up, they want to suppress the emotion, right? So what happens, they want to cry, but in fact, they don't want anybody to see they're crying. And what happens is that they look up or they look away, and sometimes they just look up and then they have the thing because the mascara might be running. I mean, but it is a fact that when people look somewhere else than where they should look, right? It's because they want to suppress the emotion. They don't want to show it to anybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I always tell to the people around me and also to the people that I work with, if everything is going down, always look up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also when we look up, we tend to be able to create more things. We can even, tell us a little if you would.
What happens is that there's an upgoing positive spiral, and the further it goes up, the wider, the more energy there's in it. However, the other way around as well, when it goes down, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger with more negative energy. And what happens when you look up, you free your throat, and the canal or the channel that will absorb oxygen is free. So, and if you use your lungs as you're supposed to use them, that means you use a full capacity by pushing the diaphragm. So you use the complete capacity of your lungs. By opening that channel, you'll get so much oxygen that goes through your brain, and you start thinking differently, and you're happy, you're energetic. When you go down and you're sad, what you do, you close that channel, you close it, less oxygen goes to the lungs, you breathe complete wrong, you breathe with your shoulders. What happens? Less oxygen, your thinking goes down, and you go into that negative spiral, and the deeper it goes, the more negative energy you get. And to get out of that negative spiral, the only thing you have to do is just lift your head, your posture changes, you go like, and you start through your nose, and you start breathing, like doing the priming exercises that you do in the morning, and it gets so much energy, you get so active, so energetic, and go, wow. And that's, yeah.
Amazing.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. Very good tools. And all these things probably will be teaching them to our artificial intelligence or to our robots very soon. Or maybe we won't need to teach them because maybe we want to learn from them, you know? Mary, thank
Yeah.
you very much for waiting and for your patience. I'm going to unmute you. If I cannot, please unmute yourself. This will be the last question that I will be.
Yes, can you hear me? Sorry, there's a bit of noise.
No, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Actually, it was related to what Rene was saying when responding to Linda regarding, you know, the dominant eye, and like when looking through the, you know, the hole in your hands, when you put your two hands together, you can try and detect it. I have the impression I see more or less the same with the two eyes. So I don't know if I'm doing it right, or how does it not work for everybody? Is there something else we can do to try and determine the dominant eye?
Yeah, there's different ways to find out what's your dominant eye. What is your dominant eye? The one exercise I just showed you with your hands like this, and make sure there's a hole, and then you stretch your arms, and you look through the hole with both eyes open, focus on one spot and like in a distance, right, far away from you, and then you close one eye. Normally, it works with everybody. Normally, you should find out if you can still see that spot. It means like there's like, let's say there's a blue circle like 10 meters away from you. You put your hands like this, look with both eyes open through that little hole, right? And stretch your arms, right? And look at that blue spot. If you close one eye and you don't see the spot anymore, right? That's not your dominant eye. If you still see it with the other eye, that's your dominant eye. Can it change? Absolutely. If you're at a funeral or in a sad situation, you might have your emotional eye, that is the dominant one. If you're in a very rational state, it might be your right eye at that very moment that is dominant. But there is a dominant eye all the time, which is connected to your character, to who you are. If you're an emotional person, most of the time, 99% of the time, with your left eye, that is the dominant.
Very interesting, and thank you very much for these amazing information. Okay. And also nowadays we were talking about the digital world, and since we women, we tend to care how I look on my left side and how I look on my right side, you know, like all these zooms, and we're sometimes doing this and that, and it
Yes. Mm-hmm. Do you know that presidents they have coaches, right?
Yes.
And Obama was surrounded with 5-6 different coaches. So what happens, I told you that your right brain is your emotional brain, connected with your left eye, connected with your left ear, connected with the left part of your body. So what will the president do during the elections if they are doing what their coach told them to do? Is that they were going to look, they're going to sit like this, show their left side and say, hey, how you doing? And look with the left eye, which is emotional. Seducing happens through the left eye, left part of the body. If you are somewhere in a place and they look like, right? I can talk about this subject for months.
Right? I can see that you're very passionate about it too. Like you really like it. This is amazing. That's a good thing. Yeah. For our later listeners, if we see a guy, and now we know a little bit about the body language from you, and let's assume that we have gone through your training and now we know more about it, and we happen to understand that the guy sitting next to us is trying to match and mirror the way that we're drinking or doing things. How can we cut the cord, I shall say, or what can we do so that their energy field or their body language does not interfere with ours? Would that be like crossing arms or crossing legs? What would you say?
Oh, I would make some fun if I would be you guys. I mean, I would play the game. If I'm in a conversation and somebody is matching mirroring me, I will play the game, and then after 15 minutes I will say, hey, was this fun, matching mirroring me? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's up to the individual how to react. What is again your outcome? What do you want from this? And if they are matching you and you don't want to start a conversation, or you want to get rid of the person, you can also just turn away from them. Done.
Done. So isn't it
Yeah.
interesting how we change the way that we even sit? We close our energy to the other person, but when we are facing them, mirror neurons tend to, you know, create a connection. And funny enough, in Japan, almost like 3 years ago, they invented this application. Now you're sitting in front of a computer, you're thinking of an apple, and the computer shows an apple.
Yeah,
so it
exactly.
is in technology, and that's what the scientists are working on, and they learn it from human beings. So everything is in our body, in our neurology, in whatever we're creating, like an artificial intelligence or a learning machine, they're actually mimicking human beings, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So in the future, how will we know from their body language that the AI, the person that we're speaking to is a human being?
I think I will have a hard time myself.
Right? I guess we're unpredictable. I mean, we do have patterns, but we tend to break our patterns as well.
There was an interview with, how was her name, the robot? She was at National.
Sophia, Sophia.
Yeah, Sophia. There was an interview with Sophia, and when you start asking questions about feelings, about emotions, that's where she blocked.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, because there's a computer system, and you know, there's voice recognition and all these things and all these systems. But once you start asking emotional questions that go really in depth, that's where they block. So
they don't have a wiring for it. Last year I was at a tech conference, and they shared that currently, like this year, 2020, they're working on emotional intelligence on artificial intelligence. I want to see that. I want to see what's going to come out of that. You know, that's going to be a revolution right there. I hope we can train and teach people to focus more on love, peace, more of emotional intelligence in terms of just like the good and vibrations that you mentioned. And I truly am looking forward to those days that we do use our emotions in business too.
Yeah, and you know, emotions are also, you can say, in terms of levels of consciousness. People react always in a certain way, and it's not always bad, but it's their level of consciousness, where we might be in a different level of consciousness. And that's why some people don't understand why people do the things they do, and the other way around. So if you start understanding what levels of consciousness are, you're already on a high level or higher level of consciousness, because you start understanding these things, and you start also understanding why people act the way they act in terms of their language.
So which means, like, when they go through your training, or when our listeners get more information about body language, one of the things that they will stop doing will be judgment. Maybe they will find a way to be in rapport with the other person. So that is going to create empathy, which we needed a lot on this world at the moment, to be able to feel the other person, to be able to understand the other person without judgments.
Exactly.
Beautiful. So your work, whatever you're doing out there in the world, is super valuable. And can you tell us the dates again? When are they again in UK?
So the first live will be 19 and 20, which is a trainer course, 2 days.
19 and 20 of June.
September.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
it's
that
on
is
the website. So it gives
perfect.
some time to people as well if they want to sign in, or if people say, hey, I can't make it in terms of the budget, you can like send me an email. I'll look what I can do for you in terms of installment.
That's very nice of you. Amazing.
Yeah. Because for me, the mission is far more important than you know, I want you to attend, but I can't give it for free neither. I mean, I have, like everybody else, invoices to pay. But what I want to say is that it's very valuable information. And once you attend that course, that only the basic trainer course, you'll see that wherever you go, whatever you do, whoever you talk to, your outcome will be different. It will be different, like it or not, because you're going to pay attention to certain signs that you see in the beginning. In the beginning, a bit less, but the more you evolve in it, the more things you're going to see. Oh, wow! And all of a sudden, the people that don't have to be in your life will not be in your life anymore, and you'll get new friends. And because of the way you think and the energy and the frequency that you put out there will attract the correct people for you.
Wow, and they can do that through only going through this training? Wow, yeah. I like that. Yeah. That's a lot of value. So you're telling me that when they go through your training that they're going to attract more quality thinkers. Is that what
more quality in terms of results, in terms of people, in terms of all kinds of things. I remember the late Wayne Dyer, he said, what you think about the whole day is what you get out of life, right? But that is so true. And what you think about, your body language will adapt. And body language is as I mentioned in the beginning of the conversation, is one of the ingredients of the success you're looking for. If it's life or business or family, it doesn't matter. But the success you're looking for, body language is one of the ingredients.
Amazing, amazing. Rene, thank you very much for this full 1 hour. And I'm just looking at the time. I can't even believe it. It's already 1 hour. It was a lot of good information. And what I'm going to do is right after I edit this video, I'm going to make sure that your video is going to be there so that they can go onto your website and they can see the dates that you shared. And also they can stay in touch with you. And when are we going to see you in Turkey? Tell us that as well before you go.
The moment their airplanes.
The moment the airplanes are on.
Been asked in Switzerland. I've been asked in London now. Been asked in Tehran. Been asked in Turkey. And I said, yeah, the moment I can fly, I'm coming. I mean, yeah, it's 2 o'clock in the morning here in Victoria, Australia. I'm so used to all these, that's flying and going. But from the moment there's an opportunity to fly again.
Amazing. Again, thank you very much. I mean, you are so much dedicated to your work and the passion comes out of you when you're talking about it. And check this out, guys. It's like 2 a.m. in Australia and he's here and giving this 1 hour full content with full energy. And it looks like you just woke up. Love it. Thank you so much. You're amazing. Absolutely. Everyone's giving you amazing.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You're amazing, Rene. And thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being a mentor. Thank you for being the master of body language. So you are inspiring many people out there in the world. We look forward to hosting you in Turkey.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Yeliz. I really appreciate that. And I hope people took away something from the conversation here. If they want anything, please contact me. If I don't contact you back immediately, it's because I'm pretty busy. But normally within 24 hours, you get a response.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And much love to Australia.
Yeah, much love to you.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much, everyone. We look forward to seeing you in another episode. Bye.